I walked into that tech company feeling like I had finally made it. With my coding skills and determination, I had landed a position at one of the most prestigious firms in Silicon Valley. Jackson, a senior developer, took me under his wing immediately. We clicked on every level, spending weekends, coding together, and sharing ideas that could change the industry. I trusted him completely. When strange errors started appearing in my work, I never suspected the mentor who had become like a brother to me. Before I tell you how I discovered the ultimate betrayal from someone I considered family, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. And hit that subscribe button if you have ever been blindsided by someone you trusted. The pressure at Nexus Technologies was palpable from day one. Walking through those glass doors felt like entering a gladiator arena where only the strongest survived. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota where people still left their doors unlocked at night. That trusting nature followed me to college, where I earned a full scholarship to MIT. Despite graduating top of my class, I still felt like an imposter when I accepted the position at Nexus. Everyone else seemed to come from privileged backgrounds with connections I could only dream about. The office landscape reflected the company culture perfectly. Open concept in theory, but territorial in practice. Desks were arranged in pods, with senior developers occupying the spaces near windows with breathtaking views of San Francisco Bay. Junior developers like me were relegated to inner areas with no natural light. The message was clear: climb the ranks or remain in darkness. Maria Jimenez led our team with quiet efficiency. Her reputation for fairness made her respected, though some considered her too soft for the cutthroat environment. Derek Holloway occupied the desk across from mine. His designer clothes and perfectly styled hair matched his ambition. He made no secret of his plans to climb the corporate ladder, regardless of who got pushed aside in the process. Amanda Chen from HR occasionally wandered through our floor, her clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield as she monitored the delicate ecosystem of talent and tension. My small apartment 20 minutes from the office cost nearly 70% of my salary. I ate ramen noodles 4 nights a week to save money. But none of that mattered, because I was exactly where I wanted to be doing what I loved. I decorated my desk with a single photo of my parents standing outside our modest home, a reminder of where I came from and who believed in me before anyone else did. The first few weeks passed in a blur of orientation sessions and basic coding assignments. Most senior developers barely acknowledge new hires, knowing the turnover rate for junior positions hovered around 60% in the first year. We were essentially disposable until proven otherwise. Then Jackson Taylor changed everything for me. I first noticed Jackson during a department meeting when he challenged our CTO on an implementation strategy. While others cowered in silence, Jackson articulated his alternative approach with confidence that commanded respect. Standing 6'2" with athletic shoulders and salt and pepper hair, despite being only 35, he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who knew his worth. 3 weeks into my employment, I was struggling with a particularly stubborn bug in the codebase. Everyone else had left for the day, but I remained determined to solve the problem before morning. Jackson passed by, noticed my frustration, and pulled up a chair. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked, already scanning my screen. "Ah, the authentication module. That thing has been giving everyone headaches since we migrated frameworks." Within 20 minutes, he helped me identify the issue and implement a solution. Instead of making me feel incompetent, he praised my approach and pointed out how close I had been to solving it myself. "Most new devs would have given up hours ago," he said with an approving nod. "You've got grit, Barton. This place will chew up talented developers who lack persistence." That night marked the beginning of our friendship. While others treated junior developers as competition, Jackson seemed genuinely interested in mentoring me. He invited me to debugging sessions that turned into discussions about everything from quantum computing to our shared love of classic 80s video games. Soon, our professional relationship expanded beyond office walls. We started meeting on weekends at his luxury apartment in the Marina District. The space looked like something from an architectural magazine, with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture that probably cost more than my yearly salary. We would spend hours coding while sharing pizzas and trading stories. I learned that Jackson came from money, but had rejected his family legacy in banking to pursue his passion for technology. He showed me photos of rock climbing expeditions in Yosemite and surfing trips to Maui. His life seemed wonderfully uncomplicated and deliberate. every choice made with purpose. After 6 months at Nexus, I no longer felt like an outsider. Jackson had introduced me to key people in different departments and included me in meetings typically reserved for senior staff. When we walked through the office together, people noticed. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere prestigious. Then came the announcement that would change everything. The entire floor fell silent as our CEO unveiled plans for Project Phoenix during the quarterly meeting. Nexus would integrate cutting-edge artificial intelligence into our flagship product, potentially revolutionizing how businesses process data. It represented not just a technological breakthrough, but a potential valuation increase of billions for the company. "We need our strongest team on this," the CEO announced, scanning the room. "Only those who contribute significantly to Phoenix will be considered for the senior positions opening next quarter." The energy in the room shifted instantly. Everyone straightened in their chairs, mental calculations already forming about how to secure a spot on the project. As a relatively new hire, I assumed I would be assigned some peripheral task at best. That evening, Jackson stopped by my desk with an uncharacteristic grin. "I just nominated you to lead the natural language processing component for Phoenix," he said casually, as if he had not just handed me the opportunity of a lifetime. "The committee approved it unanimously after I showed them that sentiment analysis algorithm you developed last month." I nearly fell out of my chair. "That is a core component of the entire project." "Are you serious? There are at least 5 more experienced developers who could take that on." Jackson clasped my shoulder firmly. "None with your specific talent for this. Trust me, Barton, you were built for this challenge. And I will be overseeing the AI integration across all components, so we will be working closely together." That night, I called my parents with the news, their pride audible even through my budget smartphone with its cracked screen. My father, who had worked 30 years at the same factory without a single promotion, seemed particularly moved. "All those nights I found you asleep at the computer instead of in bed," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Looks like they are paying off now, son." The next weeks blurred into a flurry of activity. Jackson and I established an aggressive timeline for development. We commandeered a small conference room covering the glass walls with flowcharts and pseudocode. I worked 14-hour days, stopping only when my vision blurred too much to see the screen. Jackson matched my commitment hour for hour, bringing coffee and occasionally forcing me to take breaks. "Burnout is real," he warned during one particularly grueling session. "I have seen brilliant careers derailed because developers did not know when to step away from the keyboard." His guidance proved invaluable as I navigated the complexities of the project. Whenever I hit a roadblock, Jackson provided just enough direction to help me find my own solution without solving it for me. My confidence grew under his mentorship, and the prototype began taking shape faster than anyone expected. 3 weeks into development, I noticed the first anomaly. A file containing core functionality for my module disappeared from my directory. The backup existed, but I distinctly remembered saving multiple versions locally. "Probably just an autosave issue," Jackson suggested when I mentioned it. "The system has been glitchy since the last update." I accepted his explanation without question and restored from backup. 2 days later, it happened again with a different file. This time I made sure to create multiple copies across different locations. The incident that should have triggered my suspicion occurred during my first executive presentation. I had prepared a comprehensive demonstration of the natural language processing capabilities, testing it repeatedly the night before. Standing before the executive team, including the CEO, I launched the demo confidently. Nothing happened. I tried again, feeling sweat bead along my hairline as expressions around the table shifted from interest to impatience. On the third attempt, the program crashed completely, displaying error messages I had never seen during testing. "Technical difficulties," I stammered frantically, searching for the issue. Jackson smoothly rose from his seat. "If I may," he said, taking over my laptop. Within seconds, he identified the problem, a configuration setting, somehow changed since my last test. He fixed it and proceeded to lead the demonstration himself, explaining my work with such intimate knowledge it seemed like his own. The executives appeared impressed by the recovery, but I noticed Maria watching the interaction with a furrowed brow. After the meeting, she pulled me aside in the hallway. "Be careful with how much you share before documentation," she said cryptically. "Not everyone plays by the same rules here." "What does that mean?" I asked, confused by her warning. "Just Keep better controls on your intellectual property." She glanced down the hallway where Jackson stood chatting with the CTO, then walked away without elaborating. I dismissed her concern as typical corporate paranoia. After all, Jackson had just saved my presentation. If he had not been there, my first impression with executive leadership would have been disastrous. His actions only confirmed what I already believed: he was looking out for me. I could not have been more wrong. The technical issues with my work began occurring with unsettling regularity. Files corrupted overnight. Test cases failed inexplicably. Database connections dropped during critical operations. Each time I spent hours troubleshooting, only to find bizarre elementary errors in my code that I was certain I had not made. My frustration peaked when I overheard Jackson on a phone call in what he thought was an empty break room. I had stepped in to grab coffee before another late-night session when his voice carried from behind the partition. "The natural language algorithm is performing beyond expectations," he was saying. "My approach to semantic analysis is processing contextual meaning with nearly 93% accuracy." I froze coffee mug suspended midair. The algorithm he was describing was undeniably mine, down to the specific accuracy percentage I had achieved just days earlier. I set my mug down silently and left, before he could discover my presence, mind racing to reconcile what I had heard with my trust in him. The next morning, an anonymous email appeared in my inbox with only the subject line, "Watch your back. Not everyone celebrating your success is on your side." I deleted it immediately, assuming it was just office politics or jealousy from another developer. Yet the seed of doubt had been planted, germinating slowly in the back of my mind. I began paying closer attention to patterns I had previously ignored. When reviewing the security badge access logs for an unrelated issue, I noticed something peculiar. Jackson had entered my office 3 times after midnight in the previous week. When I casually asked what he had been working on so late, his explanation about checking server configurations seemed plausible, but he avoided direct eye contact for the first time since I had known him. I found myself torn between mounting evidence and loyalty to the person who had championed my career. The internal conflict affected my sleep, leaving me staring at my ceiling at 3 in the morning, replaying every interaction for clues I might have missed. Had there been a shift in his behavior that I had overlooked? Was I allowing paranoia to damage the most important professional relationship I had built? My indecision ended abruptly, the day of the major software update. After weeks of preparation, my module was scheduled for integration with the main branch. The deployment began at 9 in the morning, with the entire team monitoring dashboards for any issues. At 9:17, every alert on the system triggered simultaneously. The production environment crashed completely. Customer data became inaccessible. The damage control scramble began immediately, with developers rushing to identify the failure point. By noon, all evidence pointed to my code as the culprit. An emergency meeting was called with upper management present. I sat at the conference table, stomach churning, as logs displayed on the projector clearly showed my module initiating the cascade failure. "Walk us through what happened," Barton, the CTO, demanded, arms crossed. Before I could gather my thoughts, Jackson spoke up. "If I may, I noticed some concerns with the validation protocols when I reviewed the code yesterday." He proceeded to highlight several critical flaws in my implementation points, where input validation failed and memory management issues occurred. His analysis was comprehensive and damning. With each word, I felt my reputation disintegrating. "Why were these issues not caught in code review?" the CEO asked sharply. Jackson sighed, the perfect picture of reluctant disappointment. I raised several of these concerns with Barton, but he insisted the implementations were solid. Given his ownership of the module, I respected his authority on the final decision. The blood drained from my face. This was an outright lie. Jackson had reviewed my code the previous week and given explicit approval on every component he now criticized. I opened my mouth to protest, but realized how defensive any denial would sound in the face of a system-wide failure. The meeting ended with me assigned to fix the issues under supervision from another senior developer. Jackson volunteered to assist in the recovery effort for customer systems. As everyone filed out, I noticed several colleagues avoiding eye contact with me. Within hours, I had transformed from rising star to liability. That night, I called my father from the empty office, my voice breaking as I explained the situation. "Something does not add up, Dad. The code that crashed was not my final version. Critical safety features are missing that I know I implemented. My father, who understood little about programming but everything about workplace politics, listened quietly before responding. Trust your instincts, son. In 40 years working, I learned that when something feels wrong, it usually is. But accusations without evidence will only make you look worse. Find proof before you say anything. His advice echoed in my mind as I hung up. The stress of recent weeks had manifested physically. 10 pounds lost from my already lean frame, persistent headaches, a nervous tick in my right eye that appeared whenever anxiety peaked. My colleagues now viewed me with either pity or suspicion, keeping conversations brief and technical. The camaraderie I had worked months to build evaporated overnight. With my reputation in tatters and financial pressure mounting, I had recently signed a lease on a slightly better apartment. Based on the promised promotion, I made the decision to investigate what was really happening, no matter where the evidence led. The opportunity came 3 nights later. I had stayed late again, attempting to rebuild my damaged module from scratch. Around midnight, I walked to the break room for more coffee and passed by Jackson's office. His door stood ajar, desk lamp still on. Peering inside, I confirmed it was empty, but noticed his computer screen still active. He had left in a hurry without locking his workstation. I stood frozen in the doorway, moral debate raging inside me. Accessing someone else's computer without permission violated company policy and possibly the law. Yet, if someone was deliberately sabotaging my work, my entire future hung in the balance. Heart pounding in my throat, I slipped inside and closed the door. I told myself I would only look for evidence related to my project. Nothing personal, nothing unrelated. Just confirmation of what I increasingly suspected. Jackson's desktop was meticulously organized into labeled folders. Most contained project names or technical categories, but one folder labeled simply Barton Project stood out like a beacon. My hand trembled slightly as I clicked to open it. The contents stole my breath. Dozens of files organized chronologically, documenting what could only be described as a systematic campaign to undermine me. Copies of my original code sat alongside modified versions containing subtle but critical errors, the exact errors that had appeared mysteriously in my work. Screenshots of my private emails with team members. A draft email to management suggesting I lacked the experience necessary for my role, prepared weeks ago but never sent. Most damning was a document titled Timeline outlining incidents orchestrated to erode confidence in my abilities. The production crash had been planned 2 weeks in advance, with detailed notes on how to modify my code after submission but before deployment. My vision blurred as nausea swept through me. The mentor I had trusted, the friend I had defended to others, had been meticulously dismantling my career piece by piece. The betrayal felt physical, like hands squeezing my chest until I could not breathe. With shaking fingers, I used my phone to photograph the evidence, careful to include file metadata and timestamps. I closed everything exactly as I had found it, and returned to my desk, legs unsteady beneath me. That night, I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every interaction with Jackson through this new horrifying lens of betrayal. The next morning, I spotted Jackson in the company gym before work. He was alone, methodically completing bench presses with practiced form. I approached him, adrenaline making my hands shake slightly. "We need to talk," I said quietly, standing over him as he completed his set. "Morning, Barton. Rough night. You look terrible." He sat up, reaching for a towel to wipe his face. His casual concern seemed so genuine that for a moment I doubted my own discovery. "I know what you have been doing." I kept my voice low, conscious of potential witnesses. "I saw the files, Jackson. All of them. The modified code, the timeline, everything." His expression shifted subtly, eyes narrowing as he assessed my claim. "I do not know what you are talking about. Do not bother denying it. I have proof." I showed him my phone screen displaying one of the photos from his folder. "You have been systematically sabotaging my work for weeks." The transformation in his demeanor was immediate and chilling. The friendly mentor vanished, replaced by a cold calculation I had never witnessed before. A smirk formed on his lips as he stood, using his slight height advantage to look down at me. "And what exactly do you plan to do with this supposed evidence?" His voice remained conversational but carried an unmistakable threat. "Who do you think they will believe? The senior developer with 7 years at the company, or the rookie who just caused a system-wide crash? Why would you do this? I demanded, struggling to comprehend the betrayal. I trusted you. I thought we were friends. Jackson laughed, the sound devoid of humor. This is business, Barton, not summer camp. Only one person is getting the promotion to lead architect when Phoenix launches. Did you really think they would choose you over me? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You were useful until you started showing real talent. Then you became competition. So you decided to destroy my career. My voice cracked with emotion. I decided to eliminate an obstacle, he corrected calmly. Nothing personal. If you were smarter, you would have protected your work better. His casual dismissal of destroying something I had worked my entire life for ignited a rage I had never experienced. My hands curled into fists at my sides, body tensing with the urge to physically strike him. The rational part of my brain calculated the consequences: assault charges, immediate termination, career suicide. Jackson noticed my physical reaction and smiled wider. Go ahead, add workplace violence to your resume. That will really help your case. With tremendous effort, I unclenched my fists and took a deliberate step backward. You will not get away with this. I already have. His confidence was absolute. If you try to report this, I will make sure everyone knows you accessed my computer without permission. That is grounds for immediate termination. And good luck finding another programming job after that. Silicon Valley is smaller than you think. I walked away then, not trusting myself to remain without doing something I would regret. My mind raced through options as I returned to my apartment to change clothes, unable to face the office immediately. The evidence I had was compromised by how I obtained it. Jackson held all the cards in terms of reputation and influence. But I refused to be defeated by his betrayal. That afternoon, I requested a meeting with Maria, my team lead. Though skeptical at first, her expression changed as I shared the photos and explained the situation. She sat back in her chair, processing the information. Unfortunately, this is not the first time, she said, finally surprising me. 2 years ago, another promising developer left suddenly after a major project failure. Jackson was his mentor too. Why did no one investigate? I asked, incredulous. We had suspicions, but no proof. The developer refused to file a formal complaint and left the industry entirely. She studied the evidence on my phone carefully. These were obtained illegally, so we cannot use them directly. But they give us enough to know where to look for legitimate evidence. Over the next 2 days, Maria and I worked discreetly to build a case. She authorized a security audit that revealed Jackson had indeed accessed my workstation after hours multiple times. We recovered the original unaltered versions of my code from backup servers and documented the changes made between submission and deployment. Most damning was the discovery that 2 other former employees had experienced similar patterns of sabotage while working with Jackson. One agreed to provide a written statement about his experiences. I worked through the weekend in my apartment, meticulously reconstructing the damaged components of Project Phoenix. With each line of code, my determination strengthened. This was no longer just about saving my job or reputation. It was about standing against the kind of toxic behavior that drove talented people from the industry. Monday morning arrived with a department-wide meeting scheduled to review the recent failures and establish a path forward. Jackson entered the conference room with confident swagger, nodding cordially to executives as if the project's recovery was already assured. The CTO opened the meeting by asking Jackson to present his assessment of what went wrong. He launched into a polished presentation, highlighting what he called fundamental architectural flaws in my implementation. With convincing technical detail, he painted a picture of an inexperienced developer in over his head. When he finished, all eyes turned to me, expecting excuses or defensive arguments. Instead, I connected my laptop to the projector and opened a different presentation. I appreciate Jackson's analysis, but I would like to present some additional information, I began calmly. Over the next 20 minutes, I methodically laid out the evidence we had gathered. The timeline of file access showing Jackson in my workspace after hours. Side-by-side comparisons of my original code and the altered versions that actually deployed. Testimony from a former employee describing the identical pattern of sabotage. Finally, I launched the rebuilt module demonstrating the actual functionality I had originally developed, working flawlessly as intended. This is the system I actually built, I concluded, not the one that was deployed. The room fell silent. Executives exchanged shocked glances. Jackson's face had drained of color. his expression cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally, desperate calculation. "This is absurd," he sputtered. "He is obviously trying to deflect blame for his failures. Are we really going to take the word of a junior developer over mine?" The CTO raised his hand to silence Jackson's protests. "The evidence speaks for itself. Security logs do not lie, and the code comparisons are irrefutable." He turned to the head of HR. "I believe this warrants immediate action." Jackson was escorted from the building that afternoon, his personal items delivered to him later by courier. An internal investigation was launched into his past projects, revealing a pattern of taking credit for others' work dating back years. The weeks following Jackson's departure brought significant changes to both the company and my position within it. The executive team issued a formal apology for not recognizing the signs of sabotage sooner, with the CEO personally visiting my workspace to express his regret. "We failed to protect one of our most valuable team members," he acknowledged. "That changes starting today." To my astonishment, I was offered leadership of the entire natural language division for Project Phoenix, complete with a substantial salary increase, and my own team of developers. The promotion that had motivated Jackson's betrayal landed in my lap after all. The vindication felt hollow at first. Trust once broken proved difficult to rebuild. I found myself triple-checking code before sharing, hesitating, before opening up about new ideas and questioning the motives behind every colleague's suggestion. "You cannot live like that," my father advised during our weekly call. "Suspicion is a prison built from the inside." Taking his words to heart, I sought help through the company's mental health program. Weekly therapy sessions helped me process the anger and betrayal without letting it define my future. I learned to distinguish between healthy caution and paralyzing mistrust. Gradually, I rebuilt connections with teammates through transparent communication and shared goals. I established new protocols for code review that protected everyone's contributions while fostering collaboration. My own experience made me particularly attentive to new team members, creating a culture where achievements were recognized and credited properly. The restructured division thrived under this approach. 6 months after Jackson's departure, our component of Project Phoenix exceeded all performance benchmarks, drawing attention from industry publications and competitors alike. My team developed a reputation as both technically excellent and supportive, a rare combination in our cutthroat industry. The most unexpected outcome was discovering my passion for mentorship. Having experienced the worst version of this relationship, I became determined to provide what I had initially thought Jackson offered me: genuine guidance without hidden agendas. I established a formal mentoring program for junior developers, emphasizing ethical leadership alongside technical growth. The best revenge against toxicity is creating something healthy in its place. I told my team during our first off-site retreat, "Success is not just what you build, but how you build it." 2 years have passed since those dark days of betrayal. Project Phoenix launched to critical acclaim, transforming our company's market position and setting new standards for AI integration. My division has grown from 7 people to 23, with an impressive pipeline of innovations under development. I occasionally hear about Jackson through industry channels. After leaving Nexus, he struggled to find comparable employment as word of his methods spread through professional networks. He eventually joined a struggling startup for significantly less prestige and compensation, only to depart after similar accusations surfaced months later. I could take satisfaction in his downfall, but I have found something more valuable: freedom from the weight of resentment. Forgiveness did not mean excusing his actions or allowing him back into my life. It meant releasing the power those events held over my happiness and growth. The lessons from that experience fundamentally shaped my leadership philosophy. I learned that true strength comes not from undermining others, but from building them up. That security does not come from being indispensable, but from creating teams where everyone can shine. That integrity, once compromised, cannot be algorithmed back into existence. The company now has safeguards against the kind of sabotage I experienced, with better monitoring and clear attribution of contributions. But the most important changes happened within me: confidence in my abilities, that no one can shake; discernment about who deserves trust; and resilience that comes only through weathering betrayal. As I mentor young developers facing their own challenges, I often ask them, how do you balance necessary trust with appropriate vigilance in your professional relationships? Their answers reveal much about their experiences and outlook. I encourage them to protect their work without closing themselves off from genuine collaboration to verify, without becoming paranoid to address concerns directly, without assuming malice. If you have ever faced betrayal in your professional life, drop a comment below about how you handled it. Did you confront the situation or walk away? What would you have done differently? Hit the like button if this story resonated with your experiences. Subscribe for more real-life career stories, and share this video with someone. Navigating difficult workplace dynamics. Remember that your greatest setbacks often become the foundation for your most meaningful growth. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength and wisdom in your own professional journey.